before we dive into this forbidden knowledge that has been hidden from humanity for centuries, I need to ask you something. What time is it where you are right now? And where in the world are you watching this from? I'm asking because time and location are about to become incredibly important to what I'm about to reveal to you. Because the ancient mystics understood that certain truths can only be absorbed when your consciousness is in the right state, and the energy of your specific location on this planet, combined with the exact moment you're receiving this information, creates a unique portal for this knowledge to enter your awareness. The reason I'm telling you this is because what you're about to learn will shatter everything you thought you knew about relationships, about why certain people feel so familiar, about why you keep attracting the same patterns, the same conflicts, the same inexplicable connections that feel like they transcend this lifetime, and the real reason why some souls keep showing up in your life wearing different faces, different names, different bodies, but carrying the exact same energy signature that your soul recognizes instantly, even when your mind can't understand why. You've probably been told that when you meet someone and feel that instant recognition, that déjà vu, that sense of, I know you from somewhere, it's just coincidence, just your imagination, just your brain playing tricks on you. But what if I told you that's the biggest lie the Matrix has ever fed you? What if I told you that every single person who has ever made you feel that inexplicable familiarity, that instant comfort or instant conflict, that sense of unfinished business, is actually a soul you've been dancing with across multiple lifetimes, playing out the same karmic patterns, working through the same lessons, completing the same contracts that were written in the stars before you ever took your first breath in this current incarnation. The truth is, there are no coincidences in this universe, and every soul that crosses your path, every person who triggers you, every relationship that feels predestined, is exactly that predestined, orchestrated by forces far beyond what mainstream science wants you to believe. Because if you understood the true nature of soul contracts, if you understood how reincarnation really works, if you understood that your current life is just one chapter in an eternal story you've been writing with, the same cast of characters across thousands of years, you would never again feel powerless in your relationships. You would never again wonder why certain people affect you so deeply. And you would finally understand that you have the power to break free from toxic soul patterns that have been keeping you trapped in cycles of pain, confusion, and unfulfilled destiny for lifetimes upon lifetimes. But here's what they don't want you to know. Here's the secret that mystery schools have guarded for millennia. The knowledge that was encoded in the Egyptian temples, whispered in the Tibetan monasteries, and passed down through bloodlines of ancient wisdom keepers who understood that human consciousness is far more complex and interconnected than the material world wants you to believe. Your soul doesn't just randomly bump into other souls, doesn't just accidentally attract certain energies, doesn't just coincidentally keep meeting the same types of people who push your buttons, challenge your growth, or make you feel like you're reliving the same relationship dynamics over and over again. No, your soul is operating on a level of intelligence that transcends your conscious mind, following a cosmic blueprint that was designed before this lifetime began. A sacred contract that outlines exactly which souls you need to encounter, exactly what lessons you need to learn together, and exactly how these relationships will serve your highest evolution, even when they feel like your greatest source of suffering. The ancient Egyptians called this the Ka, the eternal aspect of your being that carries the memory of all your soul connections across time. And they built entire temples dedicated to understanding how these soul families reincarnate together, how they find each other lifetime after lifetime, and how they can consciously participate in healing their collective karma, instead of unconsciously repeating the same destructive patterns that keep them bound to the wheel of suffering. What mainstream psychology calls attachment styles and relationship patterns is actually your soul's way of remembering exactly how you've related to specific souls in past incarnations, and why certain people can trigger reactions in you that feel completely disproportionate to what's actually happening in your current relationship with them. That person who makes you feel instantly angry for no logical reason? You've been in conflict with that soul before, probably multiple times, probably over the same core issues that you're still working through. That person who feels like home the moment you meet them? You've loved that soul before, probably protected each other, probably shared sacred bonds that transcend romantic love, friendship, or family connections as this world understands them. That person who betrays you in ways that feel devastatingly familiar? You've been betrayed by that soul before, and you chose to incarnate with them again because your soul knows that forgiveness, boundary setting, and reclaiming your power are lessons you still need to master. But here's the part that will blow your mind. Here's the part that changes everything once you truly understand it. These souls aren't just randomly showing up in your life. They're not just accidentally crossing your path. They're not just coincidentally triggering your deepest wounds and your greatest growth. They're being magnetically drawn to you by forces that operate beyond the physical realm, beyond the conscious mind, beyond what science currently acknowledges as possible. The ancient Hindu texts speak of vasanas, the subtle impressions that your soul carries from lifetime to lifetime, creating magnetic attractions and repulsions that determine who you'll meet, who you'll love, who you'll conflict with, and who you'll need to forgive in each incarnation. But what they don't tell you in watered-down spiritual teachings, what they don't want you to understand because it would make you too powerful, is that these vasanas aren't just passive imprints, they're active energy signatures that your soul broadcasts into the quantum field, literally calling specific souls to incarnate in your vicinity, literally magnetizing the exact experiences you need for your evolution, literally orchestrating the precise timing and circumstances that will allow you to encounter these souls when you're ready for the next level of healing, growth, or completion. This is why you can move to a completely different city, change your entire lifestyle, think you've left your past behind, and still attract the same soul wearing a different face, still find yourself in relationships that feel hauntingly familiar, still discover that you're working through the exact same issues with someone who looks nothing like your previous partners, but carries the identical energy signature that your soul recognizes immediately. Your soul doesn't see bodies, doesn't see names, doesn't see the surface-level differences that your mind focuses on. Your soul sees essence, sees karmic debt, sees unfinished business, sees opportunities for healing that can only happen between specific combinations of consciousness that have history together across time. But let me tell you something even more profound, something that will completely shift how you approach every relationship in your life. The reason you keep meeting the same soul in different bodies isn't because you're cursed, isn't because you're unlucky, isn't because you have bad taste in people or poor judgment about who to trust. The reason is because your higher self, the aspect of you that exists beyond this physical incarnation, the part of you that remembers your eternal identity and your soul's mission, has specifically chosen to incarnate during this time period, in this location, with access to these particular souls, because this lifetime represents a unique opportunity to break cycles that have been playing out for centuries, to heal wounds that have been festering across multiple incarnations, to complete agreements that were made in higher realms before any of you ever took physical form. The Tibetan Buddhist teachings explain this through the concept of bardo, the space between lives where souls review their previous incarnations, assess what karma still needs to be balanced, what relationships still need healing, what gifts still need to be exchanged, and then consciously choose which souls to incarnate with, which family systems to enter, which geographical locations will provide the optimal conditions for the work they need to accomplish together. This isn't random. This isn't accidental. This isn't the universe playing cruel jokes on you. This is your soul operating as a master strategist, positioning you precisely where you need to be, with precisely the souls you need to encounter, at precisely the moments when you're capable of doing the deepest healing work of your entire existence. Now here's where this gets really interesting. Here's where the forbidden knowledge starts to reveal secrets that could change your life forever. Every soul that keeps showing up in your experience, every person who feels familiar in ways you can't explain, every relationship that triggers massive emotional responses, is connected to you through what ancient mystery schools called soul threads, energetic cords that link your consciousness to theirs across time and space, carrying information about every interaction you've ever had, every promise you've made, every wound you've shared, every gift you've exchanged throughout your soul's journey. These threads don't disappear when someone dies, don't dissolve when relationships end, don't weaken when you try to forget someone or move on from painful experiences. They remain active in the quantum field, continuously transmitting energy between your souls, continuously influencing who you attract, how you react, what triggers you, what heals you, and what lessons keep presenting themselves until you finally learn what your soul came here to understand. Modern quantum physics is just beginning to discover what ancient mystics have always known: that consciousness creates energetic entanglement between individuals that transcends physical death, transcends geographical distance, transcends the limitations of linear time. And this entanglement explains why certain people can affect you so profoundly, why you can feel someone's energy from across the world, why you sometimes know things about people you've just met that they've never told you, and why some relationships feel like they carry the weight of eternity, even when they only last a few months or years in this incarnation. But here's the secret that changes everything. Here's the knowledge that mystery schools have protected because it gives you incredible power over your spiritual destiny. These soul threads can be consciously worked with, can be intentionally healed, can be deliberately transformed from sources of karma and unconscious reaction into tools for mutual liberation and conscious co-creation. When you understand that every challenging person in your life is actually a soul you've contracted with to help each other evolve, when you realize that every trigger is actually a gift pointing you toward unhealed aspects of yourself, when you recognize that every familiar soul is offering you an opportunity to rewrite ancient patterns and create new possibilities for how consciousness can relate to itself, you stop being a victim of your relationships and start becoming a conscious participant in your soul's evolution. The Hermetic teachings speak of this as above, so below. The understanding that your earthly relationships are perfect mirrors of the cosmic relationships between different aspects of your own consciousness. And when you heal the patterns between yourself and others, you're actually healing the patterns within your own soul that created the need for these external mirrors in the first place. This is why the same issues keep showing up with different people, until you finally address them at the soul level. Why you can't just avoid or reject challenging souls without the patterns following you into new relationships. And why the most difficult people in your life are often your greatest spiritual teachers disguised as your worst enemies or most painful disappointments. The ancient Egyptians understood this so deeply that they created entire mystery school initiations around recognizing your soul family, understanding your karmic contracts, and learning to work consciously with the souls you've been traveling with across lifetimes. They knew that Earth is essentially a school where groups of souls incarnate together repeatedly, taking turns playing different roles, sometimes parent and child, sometimes lovers, sometimes friends, sometimes enemies, sometimes teacher and student, until every possible dynamic has been explored, every lesson has been learned, every gift has been exchanged, and every wound has been healed between them. This is why someone who was your mother in one lifetime might be your romantic partner in another. Why someone who betrayed you as a friend might return as your child to give you opportunities for unconditional love and forgiveness. Why someone who supported your spiritual growth as a teacher might come back as your business partner to help you manifest your gifts in new ways. The roles change, but the essence remains the same. The core lessons remain consistent, and the soul-level love that underlies all these relationships remains eternal even when the personality-level experiences are painful, confusing, or disappointing. But let me share with you something even more revolutionary, something that will completely transform how you navigate relationships for the rest of your life. When you start to recognize these soul patterns, when you begin to see the eternal perspective behind your temporal experiences, when you understand that every person who triggers you is actually showing you aspects of yourself that need healing, you gain the power to consciously complete karmic cycles instead of unconsciously repeating them. This means you can encounter a soul who has hurt you in past lifetimes and choose to respond with forgiveness and boundaries instead of revenge and resentment, breaking patterns that might have persisted for thousands of years. This means you can recognize a soul-mate connection and choose to love them in ways that serve both of your highest evolution instead of falling into codependent patterns that limit your growth. This means you can identify a soul who is meant to be your spiritual catalyst and choose to embrace the challenges they bring as opportunities for expansion instead of rejecting them as obstacles to your happiness. The moment you understand that every soul in your experience is there by divine appointment, serving your awakening in perfectly orchestrated ways, you stop trying to control or change other people and start focusing on healing and empowering yourself in relationship to whatever they're reflecting back to you. Now, here's something that's going to completely blow your mind, something that reveals just how sophisticated this soul-level orchestration really is. The timing of when you meet these familiar souls, the circumstances that bring you together, the specific life situations you're each experiencing when you encounter each other. None of this is random. All of it is precisely calibrated to create optimal conditions for the healing, growth, and completion that needs to happen between you. Your soul doesn't just attract any version of a familiar soul at any random time. It waits for the exact moment when both of your consciousness levels, life experiences, and spiritual readiness align to make the deepest possible work available between you. This is why you might not meet your twin flame until you've done enough inner work to handle that intensity. Why certain family karma doesn't surface until you're strong enough to heal it. Why some souls wait decades to reappear in your life because you needed those decades to develop the wisdom, compassion, and boundaries that would allow you to engage with them in entirely new ways. The ancient Vedic texts describe this as kala, divine timing that ensures every soul encounter serves the highest good of all involved, even when the human personality can't see the bigger picture and experiences the timing as too early, too late, or completely inconvenient. What makes this even more fascinating is that these souls often incarnate in clusters, meaning that when one significant soul from your eternal family appears in your life, others are likely to follow, creating periods of intense spiritual activation where multiple karmic threads come together simultaneously for healing and completion. This is why you might go through phases where every relationship in your life seems to be triggering deep transformation, where you're simultaneously dealing with family karma, romantic challenges, friendship betrayals, and workplace conflicts that all seem to be pointing to the same core wounds and the same opportunities for growth. Your soul doesn't spread this work out randomly across your lifetime. It creates concentrated periods of intensive healing where multiple soul contracts can be addressed simultaneously, accelerating your evolution and clearing ancient patterns with maximum efficiency. The Sufi mystics called these periods fana, times of ego dissolution where all your usual ways of relating are challenged, forcing you to find new levels of authenticity, compassion, and spiritual strength that can handle the intensity of working with multiple soul connections at once. But here's the most incredible part. Here's the secret that unlocks everything. When you start working consciously with these soul patterns, when you begin to heal your relationships from the perspective of eternal love rather than temporal hurt, when you recognize that every challenging person is actually a disguised angel offering you liberation from ancient limitations, you don't just transform your current relationships, you transform your relationship with every soul you've ever been, connected to across all time. The healing you do in this lifetime with one soul creates ripple effects that heal patterns with other souls from the same soul family. Patterns that might not even be active in your current incarnation, but were causing unconscious limitations in your spiritual growth. This is quantum healing at its most profound level. When you forgive someone who betrayed you in this lifetime, you might simultaneously be forgiving betrayals from multiple past lifetimes, clearing the entire pattern of betrayal from your soul's experience, and freeing both of your consciousness to explore entirely new ways of relating based on trust, honor, and mutual empowerment. The ancient mystery schools taught that this is actually the real purpose of human relationships. Not to make you happy in the conventional sense, not to provide comfort and security and validation for your ego, but to provide precisely the experiences you need to remember your true nature as an eternal, unlimited, unconditionally loving consciousness that is temporarily exploring itself through the illusion of separation. Every person who makes you angry is showing you where you still believe you can be diminished by external circumstances. Every person who disappoints you is showing you where you've placed your power outside yourself. Every person who abandons you is showing you opportunities to develop unshakable connection to your own divine essence. Every person who judges you is showing you where you still seek approval instead of trusting your inner knowing. Every person who triggers jealousy is showing you where you still believe in scarcity instead of recognizing your infinite nature. And every person who loves you is showing you reflections of the love that you actually are at the deepest level of your being. This is why the most spiritually advanced beings throughout history have spoken about relationships as sacred mirrors, divine teachers, and holy encounters. Not because they're always pleasant or comfortable, but because they provide the most direct path to remembering who you really are beyond all the stories, wounds, and limitations you've accumulated across lifetimes of forgetting your true identity. The Course in Miracles teaches that every relationship is either a holy relationship or a special relationship. Special relationships are based on what you can get from others to fill your perceived emptiness, while holy relationships are based on what you can give to support each other's remembrance of wholeness. When you understand that every familiar soul in your experience is actually a fragment of your own consciousness appearing to be separate, so you can practice loving all aspects of yourself back to wholeness. You stop trying to change them, fix them, or get them to meet your needs, and you start seeing them as perfect exactly as they are, playing their role in your awakening with absolute precision. But let me tell you something that's going to revolutionize how you understand soul-mate connections, twin flame relationships, and karmic partnerships. These categories that spiritual teachers talk about aren't actually separate types of relationships. They're different stages of healing and recognition that you can experience with any soul in your eternal family, depending on how much conscious work you've done together across lifetimes. A soul who starts as a karmic partner, someone who triggers your deepest wounds and challenges your biggest limitations, can become a soul mate through forgiveness, understanding, and mutual healing, and can eventually evolve into a twin flame connection when both of you have remembered your essential unity and learned to love each other as expressions of the same divine consciousness. The labels aren't fixed destinies. They're descriptions of current dynamics that can transform as your awareness expands and your capacity for unconditional love develops. This means you have the power to transform any relationship in your life by changing your perspective from separation to unity, from judgment to compassion, from fear to love, regardless of how that person chooses to respond, or whether they're consciously participating in spiritual growth. The Kabbalistic tradition explains this through the concept of tikkun, repair or correction that happens when souls consciously choose love over fear in their interactions, healing not just their personal karma, but contributing to the healing of all consciousness throughout time and space. Every moment you choose to see a challenging person as a spiritual teacher instead of an enemy, every time you respond to betrayal with boundaries instead of revenge, every time you meet abandonment with self-love instead of desperation, you're literally rewriting the cosmic code, changing the fundamental patterns through which consciousness relates to itself, creating new possibilities for how souls can interact that didn't exist before your conscious choice to embody higher frequencies of love. This is the true meaning of being a light worker, a spiritual warrior, a consciousness pioneer. You're not just healing your own wounds, you're literally evolving the capacity of consciousness itself to experience unity while exploring the illusion of diversity. Now, here's something that's absolutely crucial to understand if you want to break free from painful relationship patterns and start attracting soul connections that actually support your highest growth. The key to transforming these eternal relationships lies not in trying to change the other person, not in waiting for them to awaken or evolve or treat you differently, but in healing your relationship to the patterns they're reflecting back to you. When you heal your relationship to abandonment, people who used to abandon you will either start treating you with more consistency, or they'll naturally fade from your experience and be replaced by souls who can meet you at your new level of self-love and security. When you heal your relationship to betrayal, people who used to betray you will either become trustworthy in their interactions with you, or they'll be replaced by souls who honor your newfound boundaries and integrity. When you heal your relationship to criticism, people who used to judge you will either start treating you with more respect, or they'll be replaced by souls who celebrate and support your authentic expression. This isn't magic, this is quantum mechanics. When you change the frequency you're broadcasting through your consciousness, you literally change the reality you attract, including which aspects of familiar souls can show up in your experience. The ancient Hawaiian tradition of Ho'oponopono demonstrates this principle perfectly. By taking complete responsibility for everything in your experience and healing your internal relationship to external circumstances through forgiveness, gratitude, and self-love, you literally transform the quantum field around you, changing what's possible in all your relationships without having to convince anyone else to change their behavior. When you recognize that every person in your life is actually an externalization of some aspect of your own consciousness,